So for chapter 11, high behavioral expectations, Crystal, and Leon, we both worked on this together because we were set as pairs for this assignment. So chapter techniques. This chapter describes the skills required to catch it early and fix it without breaking instruction. Early in chapter 11, we are introduced to the 100% cycle. I worked on technique 51, 100%, part 1, radar, be seen looking, and Leon worked on technique 53, 100%, part 3, least invasive intervention. So 100% part 1, radar, be seen looking. What's the point? Prevent non-productive behavior by developing your ability to see it when it happens and by subtly reminding students that you are looking. Basically, this translates to always prove to the students that you are always looking and that you always see what they're doing, even if it seems like you don't. Okay, next. Building your radar's foundation, the swivel. Radar, reliably seeing what is happening in your classroom. Your radar is what they also could call the eyes in the back of your head. Always scan across the entire room. Make this a habit. Looking consistently and intentionally is the first step to seeing, according to the textbook. Be seen looking. Examples. Teachers would just nod or tilt their head to show the students that they are seen. Give an instruction and watch to make sure all of your students do it first. Dance moves such as the invisible column, the tiptoes, the sprinkler, the disco finger, the politician, and the QB quarterback, which is mentioned in the textbook. Dance move number 1, the invisible column, wherein a teacher moves her head slightly to the side after giving a direction, as if she's trying to look around something, an invisible column, to make sure her students are doing as they should. So basically, this translates to, you give the direction, and then you just keep searching around. Like, you're sort of looking straight, and then you kind of squint a little to see if your students are actually doing what they say they are. I think this could also apply to, like, when you're at your main desk and your students are doing work, and then you just kind of peek out to look and see if they're actually doing the work. Dance move number 2, the tiptoes, wherein a teacher stands for a moment on her tiptoes while looking out at the room, as if she's just making doubly sure everything is okay in some hard-to-see spot in the room. I think that this applies to when, like, you tell them to do something, and you get on your tiptoes, and then you kind of look down as if you're trying to see if someone's texting on their phone or reading when they shouldn't be and such. Dance move number 3, the sprinkler, wherein a teacher starts her swivel across the room, but at one point snaps back a few degrees in the direction she just scanned to intimate kabuki style. Oh, I think I just saw something I shouldn't have. No, everything is okay. It makes your scan a bit less predictable, which is generally good. So I think this is saying that you go in a direction and then you go back. And I think this benefits as a teacher because when you're near students or you're hovering around them, they could go silent or they could stop talking about what they were talking about. And then you get past them and then you just turn around and go back. And then you can actually see if they were off topic or not. Dance move number 4, the disco finger, wherein a teacher traces a track of her gaze in a swivel with her finger outstretched point style. Like one of the killer disco moves you haven't dusted off in a decade or two. It intimates, let me just check all of these places, and makes a swivel obvious to those who are least likely to notice it. I'm not really sure what this one meant, so I will let you guys translate it to however you would like. Dance move number 5, the politician, wherein a teacher channels aspiring office holders who walk on stage before a big speech and points in recognition to all of her apparent friends and supporters in the audience. One over here, one over there. As a teacher, you send a similar upbeat message of, I see you all out there, when you gesture briefly to the folks in the audience who are similarly demonstrating that they are with you. So, I'm not really sure what this one meant either, but I think it's trying to say that as a teacher, if you kind of just like stand in front of the class and you show that you need your attention, you kind of like gesture to them like, hey, I see that your eyes are on me and I appreciate it. Dance move number 6, the QB, quarterback, wherein a teacher makes like an NFL quarterback QB who, crouching behind the center, gazes quickly at the defense. Just because he's low doesn't mean he's not going to scan. Similarly, as champion teachers crouch to confer with the scholar, they flash their eyes briefly across the room to make sure they see the field. So I think this one's relevant, and I think that how it's supposed to be translated is that you sort of like crouch down with like your hands on your knees, and then you're just like scanning skeptically around the classroom. Or actually, maybe it also implies to like, maybe, for example, you're helping a student, like you're over at their desk and you're helping them with their student, and you're like crouched to like look at their paper, but also while you're looking at their paper, you're also looking around the classroom to see what's around you. Moving on.
Thank you, Crystal. Hello, class. Leon here. Jumping into the next technique, this one really stood out to me in this chapter. It's Technique 53. It's also a part of that 100% cycle, part 3, the least invasive intervention. Now, what is it? Maximizing teaching time and minimizing drama by using the sub-least and least invasive tactic possible to correct off-task students. Teach Like a Champion shares with us a list of useful interventions ranked in order of invasiveness from least to most. The first intervention that we see are non-verbal interventions, and we actually saw 6 of these back in Technique 51. Thanks, Crystal. Now, this technique, it's first on our list and is great for small micro corrections. It uses hand gestures, modeling of behaviors expected from students. These are great ways of correcting off-task students at no cost to the lesson. Next on our list, we have intervention 2. It's a positive group correction. Now, this is a quick verbal reminder offered to an entire group, advising them to take a specific action. And it's ideal for catching off-task behavior early. Intervention 3 is anonymous individual correction. An anonymous individual correction is similar to a positive group correction. However, it makes it explicit that there are people who have not yet met expectations. Now, an example of this is just the teacher saying out loud, I still need 2 sets of eyes. I still need 2 more sets of eyes, without calling anybody out specifically. Intervention number 4 is a private individual correction, or PIC. The next level of intervention is a private individual correction. When you have to name names, you can still make use of privacy. When you need more time with a student, you can make it less invasive by asking the class to work independently, giving you and that student um, a moment or two alone. Intervention 5, private individual precise praise. When using a PIP, you can walk over to a student just as you would when you make a PIC, a private individual correction, but whisper positive feedback instead of criticism. This is great for culturing the classroom. The students don't know if you're going to come and correct them or if you're going to come and praise them. So that's good. Keep them guessing. And lastly, we have intervention 6. This is a lightning quick public correction, and this is actually the most invasive on our list. Your goal here should be to limit that amount of time that the student is on stage for something negative. To focus, try to focus telling the student what the right example is rather than what he or she did wrong. Now, a quick overview of the chapter provided a number of techniques to assist us in building a productive classroom culture with 100% compliance. Champion teachers, they set the bar with these behavioral expectations, ensuring a positive, engaging environment for students. This chapter also provided both nonverbal and verbal techniques that teachers can use in the classroom. Nonverbal, of course, being the least invasive, and publicly correcting a student being the most. The objective is to teach students the behavioral expectations for class through observation. Now we were going to do this through teaching, showing, and modeling. Crystal and I were going to walk around the class, model a few examples of both positive and negative behavior. We wouldn't tell the students which is positive or which is negative, and then the students could observe and deem what they think is appropriate. Through the guided practice, we would hand out the behavioral expectations assignment for the students to check A for acceptable and B for unacceptable for what they believe regarding behavioral expectations. The worksheet would have a list of examples, and Crystal and I would roam the room to see what the students had to say, if they had ever seen this happen in class, and what makes them believe that this is acceptable or unacceptable. And lastly, checking for understanding, Crystal actually had a great idea to integrate technology into the classroom. We would have everyone hold up Plickr boards to answer anonymously. We would ask the question, hey, what is the answer for number one, number two, etc.? And you, the students, would use Plickr boards to answer A for yes or B for no. And just to show you what I'm talking about, if you're not familiar with Plickr, real quick, it consists of boards with unique QR codes on them, and the teacher would use a cell phone and download the Plickr app, scan the boards with the answers. The board is four-sided, with each side representing A, B, C, or D. The students rotate the board to whatever answer they would like to give, and this allows answers to participate in class and give their answers anonymously. And lastly, here's the behavioral expectations assignment sheet. Just to read a few, we would ask whether laying down under my desk is acceptable or not acceptable. Students would hold up the placards, answer A or B. We would ask whether letting the teacher know that you have to leave early is acceptable or not acceptable. Doing my history homework in my math class, acceptable or not acceptable, just to name a few. And that about wraps it up, guys. Again, this was chapter 11, High Behavioral Expectations. Leon and Crystal signing off. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, class. Have a good day.